Well, hi, everybody. Welcome back to Mystery Wire with George Knapp. I'm Ron Futrell. And George, we did a part one with Brandon Fugel. Looking forward to part two and jumping into much more.
Well, I think we're going to need parts 6, 7, and 8.
We might need, and it is, well, they do have a multiple parts. Certainly you can watch on the History Channel and watch The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, their series premiere, or the series in there. I'm looking forward to seeing the finale of what they do. August 18th, Tuesday night. Drops every Tuesday night on the History Channel. So Brandon Fugel joining us from Pleasant Grove, Utah. Are you in Salt Lake? Where you were?
I'm actually joining you from Salt Lake City.
Okay.
My headquarters, my office headquarters, which is about 2.5 hours from the ranch. If we were to drive there, and it's about a 45-minute flight in the helicopter.
I happen to know that that office is stashed full of movie memorabilia. We ought to do a show on that. Brandon's got a heck of a collection.
Yeah, it's the foremost collection, I think, of pop culture and movie memorabilia. Okay. Yeah, so gosh, it's so good to be with you guys.
Thank you for taking the time. We appreciate it. Skinwalker Ranch, northeastern Utah, about 500 acres there. And George, you literally wrote the book on Skinwalker Ranch and everything about it. I'm going to ask you with George here, Brandon, when you first heard about Skinwalker Ranch, first got interested in it, I assume through some of the stuff George has done over the years. Is that right?
Well, I did read George's paperback book back in 2005, 2006. I thought it was a good read. I read it in a weekend. Remember having fun with that, and then didn't really think about it at all until many, many, many years later. A couple of science advisors that had worked on a previous project that I had funded reached out to me. They were advisors to Robert Bigelow of Your Own Las Vegas, who was the previous owner, and invited me to have a meeting with Mr. Bigelow to potentially discuss the acquisition and the transfer, the stewardship of this property. Even though I vocalized my skepticism and my belief that there was a natural, prosaic explanation for everything that was going on there at the time, I was curious and appreciated the privilege of engaging. And here we are 10 years later, and we're deep into the mystery, and we have the world watching what is the most compelling scientific investigation of frontier phenomena and high strangeness on record.
The ranch and the Uinta Basin, of course, it is a UFO hotspot, has been for a long time, but it's so much more than UFOs. It's a much more complicated matter of what phenomena are there, whether it's an intelligence, an entity, something from somewhere else, or something that's lived here a long time, we don't know. In the 10 years since you bought it and started your investigation, the UFO world has changed. We had the New York Times story in 2017. The public is much more engaged. Congress is more engaged. There are demands for transparency. The Trump administration is releasing information. And yet, I have questions about whether we'll ever have something that constitutes capital D disclosure, because I'm not sure anyone really knows what the answer. And perhaps what goes on there at the ranch is the perfect example that it's not as simple as ET visiting from other planets, is it?
No, it's actually a diversity of phenomena. People ask all the time, is it angels and demons? Is it interdimensional or multidimensional, even time travelers, or is it alien? Are we dealing with beings that are visiting from other worlds? And I think the answer, based on the data, appears to be all the above. We're seeing a diversity of origins, agendas playing out on this property for whatever reason, and it's quite a sobering privilege to be part of the most scientifically studied paranormal hotspot on the planet.
You know, the vice president recently said, he was asked about UFOs, he says he thinks they're demonic. And that's interesting as it relates to the ranch, because the OSAP program, the DIA investigation, it lasted 27 months. And one of the reasons that it got nixed and the budget got pulled is because some higher-ups in the Pentagon, in these intelligence agencies, felt that what was being studied there was demonic, and that messing with demonic forces invites all kinds of trouble. You said that it might be demonic. In what sense do you think what you've seen there or what your team has experienced might fall into that category.
Well, there's definitely a spiritual aspect to what is happening on the ranch, and consciousness plays a key role there. I mean, we've had spiritual leaders, everyone from Native American shaman that have conducted work on the ranch that have helped us better understand or document the phenomena. We've had a rabbi. We had Rabbi Ariel Zadok several years ago that came out and was part of an experiment that had stunning results that demonstrated that we may very well indeed be looking at portals on this property that lead to other dimensions or other worlds that provide transit just by virtue of the incredible changes in the environment. And then you have the malfunctions. GPS doesn't operate properly. Compasses spin out of control, unreliably. And you have manipulation of equipment, some of the most advanced, sophisticated equipment and drones in the world right on this property, and no conventional explanation for it.
Often during the show, you talk about the triangle and the scientists are working on it. Explain that to me a little bit more. What that triangle is, where how big is that area, the triangle, where it seems like a lot of this phenomena happens?
Yeah, the triangle, which is what my team ended up calling this region of the property as we got into the investigation after several years, seems to be a center of gravity for studying the phenomena. We see consistent manifestation of phenomena, even objects both above the triangle and also within that region of the triangle that continue to be unexplained and warrant investigation. We've also got other features. I mean, after conducting ground penetrating radar tests and surveys of the mesa, we identified that there was material within that mesa that was out of place, that was not natural and was not part of the 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 expected geography. And so we decided to probe the mesa in response to that to see if we could access whether it be a tunnel system or whatever object may be at play there. And remarkably, we end up extracting a we end up extracting material that was of engineered, manufactured origin, that came from hundreds of feet within the mesa, that defies any real explanation. So the mystery has deepened, and we focused on key regions of this property as we've been led by the data.
Let's say you confirm that it really is a large manufactured object that's been there for who knows how long under that mesa. Would you go ahead and plan on digging it out and bringing it out?
Well, we're we're we are conducting the investigation as if it was a very sensitive medical biopsy. We don't want to damage or destroy the very material that we hope to study that may be involved with the strange phenomena that has been reported here for at least 100 years, if not millennia. So it's with great sensitivity that we're diving into this next phase of the investigation that is playing out on the secret of Skinwalker Ranch, and you can also see it on our web portal. I've got you go to skinwalkerranch.com, and you can actually access a 24-hour live stream of the property and be part of the investigation 24/7. We've crowdfunded frontier science investigation like never before.
Oh, interesting way to do it. So when we come back, Brandon Fugel is our guest, George, on Mystery Wire this week. And there is a previous episode of this. You see part two written there. So if you want to go ahead and check that out, certainly to get some background on what we're talking about. But it's The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch History Channel show that the finale for season 7 is coming up August 18th. More with Brandon Fugel when we return. Welcome back. Our guest, Brandon Fugel, and we're talking about The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, something that George has known for decades and been involved in. Now we're talking about the 10 years that Brandon has owned it, and the History Channel show is in its 7th season, and the final episode for season 7 will be on August 18th. So looking forward to that. Tuesday nights they drop. I'm curious about the use of the drones. You had me at the use of drones out there on the property, and the rockets that you use certainly are. Um, they're they're interesting to watch. They're fun to watch. I like that part of the show, but they also perform a pretty useful purpose out there. You're
Oh,
not firing them off just to fire off rockets, but you're measuring stuff when you do this.
yeah, we're taking data, we're stimulating the environment, and we're stimulating it using a diversity of scientific platforms and methods. It's not just drones and rockets, but we've had instrumented balloons. We've even put into service my own helicopter, along with other helicopters and even fixed wing aircraft, to document the strange phenomena above the property, and that encompasses this really unique and mysterious 512-acre assemblage. So it has been exciting to see this play out. It's been a historic season so far. I'm really excited for everyone to see the season finale that's forthcoming, and get ready, strap in. I mean, we've been aggressively trying to get the answers and document this like never before.
You know, a lot of discussion about disclosure. Are we on the cusp of disclosure? I am a little bit skeptical that we're on the cusp of something like that because, we've been, both you and I have been pretty far up the food chain, Brandon, and I haven't found anybody that knows for sure what it is. It could be, as you said, a whole bunch of different things. The speculation has been disclosure might be a death knell for religions, that some faiths would have a very hard time handling this. I know in speaking with Senator Harry Reid, who was my secret pen pal buddy on UFOs for a long time, 20 years into that, he finally told me, look, one reason I'm interested in this and I'm able to handle it and I'm looking forward to answers is because of his faith, the LDS faith that it had proclaimed and taught him since he was a youngster that there are many worlds out there. I wonder if
Right.
you don't wear your faith on your sleeve, but I wonder if that's part of your interest in this as well.
Sure. It's an interesting aspect of kind of my transformational journey. When I acquired the ranch, I was a skeptic. I fully expected that I was going to debunk all of the claims, and was ultimately going to not only keep my identity secret indefinitely, because I did not want my name or identity associated with these topics, but I was going to donate it to something like the Boy Scouts of America for a scouting camp or something of that nature. As I was raised as a scout and was an Eagle Scout. Well, it is interesting. Being a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or the Mormons, I was raised to believe that there are worlds without number, that we're not alone in the universe, and that we live in a divinely constructed, intelligently designed reality. And even though I've gone through my own faith journey over the years, which has brought me actually, interestingly, full circle to probably a stronger position that I've ever been in my life, but it's been an interesting thing to watch that our scientific investigation at Skinwalker Ranch is somewhat validating and speaks to the faith tradition that I hold dear. And I think people all over the world for thousands of years have asked these questions. Are we alone in the universe? What is the nature of reality? Uh, what is the nature of this world and even consciousness? And I think we are answering those questions and diving into the very nature of those inquiries at Skinwalker Ranch.
Part of the other transformation I've seen underway to happen over the years is how you deal with the public. I mean, you're always
Mhm.
polite and professional, and you answer people's questions no matter how hostile they may be. But I've noticed your engagement is more pointed in the last year or two. You get right to it and answer folks. And I wonder, part of that experience must be what happened to you in DC when you're called back to have an engagement with some power players back there. You go in full faith. You have some of your team members, you tell them about the ranch, and then later find out that they've denied it ever happened. So it seems like your patience has been limited in dealing with folks both there and on social media platforms.
Yeah, I've welcomed critical thinking. I understand skepticism. I was a skeptic. And I think a big part of the scientific method is applying critical thinking skills. What has been challenging at times is that people either A, can't handle the truth. They really don't want to know the truth if it challenges their paradigm, or B, they're so dogmatic and they're so stuck in their thinking, so plugged into the matrix that they're not willing to come to grips with the reality of what we're documenting. And you have people on both sides of the equation. You have extremists that and people that believe everything that is shown them on YouTube, and can be gullible. And then you've got the other side of the equation where people are so skeptical, so critical and negative that it clouds their judgment, and their bias is unfortunately quite clear. And then you have, as you alluded to, George, you have bad actors. You have what I believe to be disinformation agents, even at the highest levels of government, that have an agenda to discredit not only these topics, but people like me, to cast shade, to cast doubt, and distract the public relative to the reality of these topics. And these are not easy topics to confront, and it's taken some patience and some real understanding and empathy to, I think, be able to appropriately address a lot of the concerns that you see it on a daily basis are fired my way.
No, and if you also look at and back to your earlier question, George, about religion and faith and what's involved here, you look at what we see with the James Webb Telescope, okay? And we are now seeing the worlds without numbers. We are seeing these things that I find it totally compatible. I do not have any problem with going, yes, there are others out there. There are alien. They could be of alien nature. What nature they are, whether they've made contact or not. Um, they have been here. Something's been here. It's not a stretch to go, wait a second, this does fit with religious belief, with the religious belief that Brandon, that you and I share, that
Absolutely.
it fits, to me, it fits perfectly with what I've
Well,
learned from my youth and from early on. And I have absolutely no problem with that.
indeed. Well, and then you now have Washington, D.C. for the first time acknowledging the reality that our airspace is being violated by craft, by objects, by phenomena of unknown origin. And and finally showing some degree of transparency, or at least acknowledgement. I mean, times have changed. In 10 years, in the 10 years that I've owned Skinwalker Ranch, it has been a changing landscape like never before. And I think it's safe to say that a decade ago, the only way people really knew about Skinwalker Ranch was really George Knapp and Colm Kelleher's book, and a few podcasts, a few interviews here and there. But now you've got millions, probably tens of millions of people tuning in globally on the edge of their seat, watching, I think, a compelling frontier scientific investigation play out
I
real time.
I had to tell you that I was skeptical about whether the TV show would work in a sense of being able to document the things that happen there because they're so elusive. If it doesn't want anybody to see it, you don't see it. But you've been able to document the little things that add up to something big. The batteries failing, the cameras quitting, all those little things that bedeviled previous investigations, you're there and able to document it, and it builds a case, one piece at a time. It's the TV show has worked so well in documenting what really goes on there, and I was surprised that it did it so well, but I'm really happy that it's worked out this way.
Well, you and me both,
Yeah.
because I think both of us know that it's humbling, that we're not in control, that the phenomena doesn't appear, that it does not manifest on command, and we're very fortunate that we've been able to document things as well as we have, especially given what happens behind the scenes. One thing I want to point out to you guys and the general public is the fact that the production cameras and the production effort is constantly thwarted. We have drones fall out of the sky. We have audio that is meddled with. We have all sorts of equipment malfunction. We have to almost have triple redundancy with our documentary effort in order to get the end product that thankfully is presented to the public.
Something's not playing nice out there.
No.
Skinwalker Ranch. Okay, we're going to have our final segment. If you get time to stick with us for some final thoughts here, Brandon Fugel joining us here on Mystery Wire. More right after this. Brandon Fugel joining us here on Mystery Wire. George, it's been a fascinating discussion to have with him, talking about Skinwalker Ranch. You mentioned real quickly Direwolves. Explain, Brandon, if you can, a little bit more what that is quickly, and what we got about 2 minutes left. What did you find there? What is this?
Part of the interesting lore relative to the ranch, and George knows this better than anyone because he actually documented it in his book decades ago with respect to the Sherman family who lived on the property and ultimately sold it to Bigelow. Well, the Sherman family and others reported these large wolf-like creatures that were impervious, that were immune to shotgun blasts, that would attack their prized cattle and appear on the property. Well, I kind of filed that away as interesting, but really probably not having any validity because there's no wolf population in Utah. If you talk to the Department of Wildlife Resources, there really hasn't been any population or frequency of that kind of activity. Well, during our investigation, for those who've been watching the series, we captured in real time the discovery of a decomposing large wolf-like creature whose composition, I mean, the jaw, the teeth, everything is a direct match to an over 10,000-year-old extinct direwolf. And you don't have to take my word for it. Ben Woodruff, who is a respected biologist, who's been part of our team of third-party credentialed experts, went on record and actually identified the match. And then we sent off the DNA to be tested, and 89% of that DNA came back inconclusive and a mystery. So the plot thickens. If anything, we've seen continued documented evidence that speaks to the reality of what has been reported here for decades.
We're looking forward to the season finale, August 18th on the History Channel. Also hoping that you get renewal season 8 coming up. It's always tricky in the TV biz, but I'm confident you're going to be around for a while.
Well, I think you can rest assured the investigation is going to continue no matter what. I want the answers, and I want the public to know. Buckle up. The truth's out there.
Thanks, Brandon.
Yeah, very high ratings on the History Channel for this show, too. Thank you, Brandon, for joining us here on Mystery Wire with Brandon Fugel, George Knapp. I'm Ron Futrell. Bye for now, everybody.